Hi, this is the Teaserking coming to you pre-season, getting ready for the 2011 NCAA football season, and I'm going to talk about Notre Dame and teams moving from one conference to another. We'll start with the Notre Dame football. Great coach in Brian Kelly. I expect them to cover a lot of games this year, be very strong against the trend. They have their quarterback back. They have 17 returning starters. Dane Chris last year threw for 15 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, roughly a 59% completion percentage, but he looked really good. And what I like about Brian Kelly, at Lake Superior State, he won I think two or three national titles, or Grand Valley State. I apologize for that. And I'm in Michigan, so now for Grand Valley State, I know he won, I think, 2 or 3 national titles for Division 2 or 3, whatever it was. At Central Michigan, he won the MAC, I know, 2 or 3 times there. And we know what he did at Cincinnati. He went undefeated, won the Big East, and without him, they got killed by Florida with Tim Tebow's last game. But basically, they are a very good team. He coaches very well. He's a good offensive coach. And I just look for the numbers to be very strong this year with Notre Dame. Now, the key to what I look at is the Cincinnati trends. When he coached there the few years, he was very, very good against the number. Specifically, he was a very solid home coach, and he was a very good road favorite. So when you put him on as a favorite, he did very, very well. He won the games he was supposed to win. I look at their schedule this year. Pardon me for looking in the book, but I can't remember every schedule. And the only game I see them having, well, there's 2 games. They got Michigan State at home, which is a very good team, and at Stanford, which we know how good a team is. By then, at the end of the year, their coach should be fine, and depending on if Andrew Luck's healthy or not, I look for those 2 as really the only 2 that they'll have a hard time with. At Michigan, who knows what's going on with them. At Pitt, at Purdue. The Air Force will be an interesting game. They're a very, very strong team this year. They will give them problems. And Air Force plays TCU every year, so they're used to playing really strong defensive teams and really well-coached teams. So Air Force could give them a bit of a problem. USC, I don't know how good they are, but they get them at home. And that's about it, and at Stanford. So they have really 3 really tough games: Michigan State, Air Force, and Stanford. Possibly USC, I'm not sure. Possibly Michigan, but I don't. It's too early. It's the 2nd week. So I look for Notre Dame. 1, 2, 3. They got 12 games. I would think they'd at least have 10 wins. Michigan State is at home. Air Force is at home, and they're lucky that the Air Force game's at home. They had to go to the high altitude and try to play them there. They'd have a hard time. And at Stanford. So at Stanford, I would say is a loss. And then maybe the Michigan State or USC could give them will give them a hard game, but I think they can win them. But the key's the coach. The key's Brian Kelly. He's very strong versus the number. He's good at quarterbacks. You can see Tony Pike and the recent quarterback at Cincinnati now. I can't think of his name. I apologize. I'll get it in 1 second. Zach Collaros. So he's very good at coaching these kids up and developing quarterbacks. I just look for Notre Dame to have a very strong season against the number. But what will happen is, as they continue to win, the number is going to go up and up and up for Notre Dame because they're very popular throughout the country. And let's not forget, the line is a popularity contest. how many people will bet on Team A versus Team B is how many points you have to lay. Well, once Notre Dame gets rolling, a 7-point spread becomes an 11-point spread for Notre Dame, where it'd be 7 for North Carolina State. So you must understand that, but in the beginning it'll be low. I do look for Notre Dame to have a very good year. Now, teams that are changing conference, you have Boise State going to the Mountain West. They have the TCU game, which is a real big game, and outside of that, it's nothing much different than what they played in the WAC conference. But TCU is without Andy Dalton, and it's at Boise, so you look for Boise to win that game. But it'll be a good, a change of that conference. It's just they got to get used to the different teams, but I don't think Boise will have any problem there. Utah now goes to the Pac-10. I look for Utah. Utah covers like all the time. Let me quickly look at Utah's trends here. It's unbelievable. Utah is since 2008 they're 32-6. Just ungodly. All they do is cover and cover and cover. And last year they were 9-4. But I look for them to. They're a question mark because they're moving up to a stronger conference. Not the TCU. TCU is as strong as anybody. But the UNLV, the Wyoming, Colorado State, New Mexico, teams like that, they're not going to get in the Pac-10. And, they're going to get a lot more. Arizona State's really strong this year. Oregon, Stanford, USC. UCLA is not that strong, but they're still UCLA. Oregon State and Oregon. So they have a lot of very tough competition. So we'll see how Utah's trends change. But that's one to be aware of. BYU goes independent. Again, that's going to be, they have the quarterback coming back who was a freshman last year in Jay Keeps. And they got a kind of a different schedule. I mean, they've got Texas, Utah, they've got Oregon State and TCU, and then they got some WAC opponents and some Mountain West opponents. So they really only have a few real hard games. I look for BYU to do well being an independent, but they can't afford the loss because they can't win a conference anymore. But I look for BYU to be very strong this year. Good coaching. They got rid of their defensive coordinator, was a problem, and Jay Keeps is one of the strongest quarterbacks in the country, but he's only a sophomore, so just wait till he's a senior. Well, right now, that's what you have in BYU moving. You have Nebraska and you have Nebraska coming to the Big Ten, and now the Big Ten splits into Legends and I can't remember the other one. It's so ridiculous, but so you have two 6-team divisions there with Nebraska. I don't, Ohio State would have been the best team. They're all messed up with the coach going, Terrell Pryor going. I think they'll have a good quarterback, but without a coach, you follow the coach. So what are you going to do without Tressel? So that's a big question mark. The rest of it, Wisconsin and Penn State are decent. Nebraska's decent. Michigan State's decent. Illinois is good. Michigan could surprise a little bit, but they're still a year or two away. So I look for a very competitive Big Ten, but you have, Nebraska. It's going to be tough for them. I mean, there's 6 or 7 really, really strong teams in the Big Ten. You have Colorado also going to the Pac-12 now, I guess you call it. So we're going to have to adjust their trends, but it's not as big of an adjustment since they've already played the Big 12. So they've seen Oklahoma, Texas A&M. It's not a big deal for them as much as it is for. It's not as big of a deal for them as it is for Utah, who's stepping up in class versus Colorado's not. Next year TCU goes to the Big East. They'll dominate that if the way they're going. Nobody's close to them in the Big East. That's all I can think of off the off for the moment. But you got to adjust the lines. Not as much for BYU, but for Utah, and not that much for Nebraska, because Nebraska's played Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M. So it won't be that much. You can use their trends, which I will. But it's basically Utah I'll have to keep an eye on. And as always, I'll be heavily playing Air Force. Probably the best team against the line. Since 08, they are 29-6, 83% against the number, and they're very experienced this year. They will have a very, very good team. Usually, the best team against the line is Boise State. I don't see that changing. They open with Georgia, and they got TCU. Outside of that, they'll run the table. TCU they'll beat because TCU's quarterback is he's a new quarterback, and it's on the road. But TCU will be competitive. The Georgia game, Georgia's very good this year. The game's in Atlanta, which is kind of another home field like the Virginia Tech game last year. But Boise will be ready for Georgia. I figured Georgia to be favored by 7, but maybe 4-2-7 will probably not surprise me. And I would be taking Boise if I can get 10 points, absolutely. Kellen Moore proved it last year against Virginia Tech that he's a winner. And yeah, the receivers aren't, but the defense is good, and the coaching is great. And Georgia, being at Atlanta, it'll be a tough test for them. They do have their quarterback coming back, but I just look at this game as even. Georgia's got a little edge that it is in Atlanta. But I like the points in that game, and I will be taking Boise if I can get 9-10 points. Absolutely, they'll be prepared for it. And look at Virginia Tech; they ran the table basically after they played Boise. The loss to James Madison was a joke because it was 5 days later. Who schedules a football game 5 days apart? I mean, they should be fired for that. That's absolutely ridiculous. But I do look for if they went to Virginia Tech last year and beat them, and I know it wasn't in Virginia Tech, it was in Baltimore, but it was still a home game for Virginia Tech. They'll play Georgia tough. Georgia's not that strong. And I don't think they'd have problems with anybody in Boise like they used to, maybe a big SEC team. The other thing is watch the early season. There's a few, I think Arizona State, Arizona, I think a couple of those games are being played off of 5 or 6 days rest. Early in the season, that's a huge red flag. If you got a team playing on 4 or 5 days rest, traveling to Arizona or Arizona State, that's an easy one. So look for those type of games where there's not enough rest. Once they get, because of the TV, but once they get into the Saturday routine, that'll help. But I do look at that as danger. Arizona State's a very good team this year. So look for that. But basically, that's what we look for. That's what I look for in the beginning, and I'll keep you posted on that. My next one will be on the quarterbacks, and then I'll break the conferences down. Please go to www.teaserking.com. Please ask me any questions, comments you have. If I make a mistake on here, I apologize, but it's the flavor of it, of what I'm trying to say, not necessarily, if I say a wrong college or something like that. Anyway, have a great day. I look forward to talking to you more, and please email or comment. I appreciate any comments, good or bad. I like to know how I'm doing, and I'm here to make you money and give you my opinions. I've been doing this since probably about 40 years now, so please let me know what you think. Have a great day. Again, www.teaserking.com, and you can certainly leave me comments and any questions you want to know, let me know. Have a great day.